Okay, so to briefly go over what we have learned throughout the first 3 lessons out of the 7, well, we briefly talked about, what did we talk about? We briefly talked about the fact that in Korean there are colors that can be nouns and adjectives. However, on the other hand, there are also colors that can only be nouns. And also, we also talked about the fact that, well, if that's the case, what do you have to do if you have a color that can only be a noun? Does it mean that you're severely limited when it comes to how you can use it, and therefore you can't use colors in situations in which you would use colors as an adjective in English, for example? Of course not. We figured out some alternatives that enable us to use colors that can only be nouns in all sorts of situations without having to change them into adjectives. So we took a look into some technicalities in that sense. Okay, and then what did we do? Yes, we focused a little bit on adjectives that can be adjectives, not only nouns that can be adjectives as well, because usually those colors have a lot of nuance variations. Okay, so just changing the version of a word simply just to change its nuance is what I call playing with words. And I said yesterday, 어제, playing with words, studying how to play with words. Well, we're just looking at an example through colors, but you can do it with all words. Okay, but anyway, playing with words is important and can be a little bit tricky to study for 2 reasons, right? Number one, because you don't get a hint or a clue. For example, how is this and this different? 빨갛다 and 시뻘겋다. Let's say I have never seen this version before. At least is there a hint or clue that tells me, well, what kind of red it is, what kind of a variation it is? No, you don't get any. Okay, so you don't get an extra word like scary red, or you don't get some kind of a suffix that will be a hint or a clue that enables you to deduce what kind of a variation it is, even though you have never seen it before. You don't get any of that. You don't get a clue or hint or an extra word. Therefore, that means you either know the version or you don't. That's it. So that's why, yes, you have to really spend a lot of time studying vocabulary, not just red. You always have to ask yourself, do I know all versions? Do I know all variations? And am I able to change nuance? Okay, so that was the first reason why playing with words is important and also tricky. You either know it or you don't. Okay, so for example, if someone said, it's scary red, it's the scary type of red. Well, even if I am not that knowledgeable on colors, well, yes, you just literally told me what kind of red you're talking about. You literally used the word scary, and I know what scary means. So you gave me a clue, you gave me a hint. Once again, you don't get something like that. And number 2 is that, yes, you have the basic form, but yes, these variations will be used very, 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 very often. So you can't say, well, I don't think they are a priority. I can just know the basic form and I can just use it whenever I see any kind of a red. How often can these versions be used? Well, of course you can if you are the only one who's going to speak. And if you are not going to give off any kind of a nuance, if you're just going to speak in a very, let's say, robotronic way, okay? So, without any kind of a nuance, like a human being who has emotions. Okay, so now, when it comes to listening, people will use it very, 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 very often. Whenever someone sees a chance to use one of these variations because they feel like they can give off the nuance that comes from a certain variation within the given context, they will use it. So, yes, it's just a habit that Koreans have, so a lot of times they just do it without even being aware that they're doing it. So, if I ever get a chance to say something is the scary type of red, let's say I'm watching a movie and let's say it's a little bit of a, let's say, cruel scene. Someone is beating up the main character and the main character's face is bleeding. Now that's scary red. So I'm going to say 시뻘겋다. Of course, not the display form. Okay, so to summarize, the reason why playing with words is important and tricky. Number 1, you either know it or you don't. There is no way of deducing the meaning. Number 2, you use these variations very, very 자주. 되게 자주. Okay, so now that's what we talked about from lesson number 1 to 3. Okay, so today we're going to stay here with these variations a little bit more, just to practice using a couple of them, just to get used to using these nuanced variations just a little bit more before we move on. Okay. So first, let's try to use a variation of white. Okay, now, if you take a look at the PDF file, page number 8, well, not just number 8, number 4 to 8, they show you, yes, these nuance variations. However, these aren't all of the variations that exist. Of course, there are more, but I'm showing you the ones that you would actually see very often in normal life situations. Okay, but anyway, so this time, let's say we're going to use, 허옇다, 허옇다. 하얗다 would just be the basic form of white, but I want to use 허옇다 this time. Okay, so it is usually used in a little bit of a negative way, so it automatically gives off a negative nuance. Okay, so now you won't really say it's negatively white that often, right? Maybe once in like a couple of years, but still, you could if you're talking about cataracts, for example. Okay, so let's say someone is suffering from a cataract. So their eyes looked like this, but let's say this eye looks like this. You know, when you have a cataract, yes, it gets cloudy. In Korean, you say it turns white. Okay, so, and of course, I don't think anyone enjoys a cataract. So that's why we can use it in a little bit of a negative way. Okay, so let's say someone is going to say, am I showing symptoms of a cataract? Let's say they go see a doctor, and the doctor takes a close look and says, well, yes, I'm sorry to, unfortunately, let's say your left eye, it already got or became, this is how you would speak in Korean, it already got white a little. Okay, so yes, I think you are showing symptoms of a cataract. Okay, so, well, of course I'm talking about your left eye. And yes, we're going to take the adjective white, but I'm going to give it the get or become ending. And technically speaking, if you give an adjective the get or become ending, yes, it becomes a verb. So we have the verb got white. And we're going to use little as an adverb, right? And also we have another adverb already. Okay, so the doctor saying this. So, of course, we have to know at least 2 versions of alreadys, right? Am I surprised? So, the surprised version, 벌써, when the speaker is surprised as they are speaking, versus 이미, when the speaker is not surprised as they are speaking. So, yes, of course, yes, this is an unfortunate situation, but I don't think a doctor would be super surprised. These patients come to me because usually they have symptoms like this. So a doctor knew that he would likely see a patient suffering a cataract. So when a doctor says, oh yes, it already got white a little, I don't think the doctor would be super surprised. So we're going to use 이미 as already. Okay, and then a version of 조금, a little, 조금. Okay, and then, yes, once again, I am going to use white, but I'm going to give off a negative nuance. 허옇다. Okay, 허옇다. So I'll just write it in black because I don't think white will show. So 허옇다. Now, I don't want its display form. I don't want the ta ending. I want the get ending. So let's go to inflection route number 1. Okay, and speaking of inflection route number 1, I would like to rectify something, or in other words, further elaborate on something, because, yes, by starting the color course, when it comes to my long-term plans, the order of things got mixed up a little bit. Okay, so what I mean by that is, I believe that this is our 4th course. We went through inflection route number 1, courses for inflection route number 1, 2, and then the number course, and then right now we are in the color course. Okay, so yes, we know that we have a very systematic way in which we approach inflection, right? Something that I would like to avoid at all cost is to say something like, when it comes to inflection, that is, just memorize it. It's just how it is. Or you'll just, get a feeling of it if you do it 7 million times. Yes, those are things that I would like to avoid to say when it comes to inflection at all cost. So that's why we take a very methodical, systematic approach to really formulate things. Okay, now, we did go through a course for inflection route number 1 and 2 for that purpose. But I did also tease that at some point we will go through those courses again, advanced version. Inflection route number 1, advanced. Inflection route number 2, advanced. Okay, and I think we can. I'm not sure when we will start, but I think we can soon because, thanks to all of you. Because, for those who have been attending these lives for a very long time would know that I come here almost every day, right? Sometimes we take a break, or sometimes we can't do it because of some personal issues. But let's just say, for convenience, let's say 300 days a year. I come here 300 days a year, for example. Now, we do 3 sentences usually a day, right? So let's just say we get, 900 sentences. So, a year, let's say. And whenever we do a sentence, I always break down inflection, right? Sometimes even twice, because sometimes we have to inflect twice within a sentence. So let's just say we break down 1,000 inflections a year. And at first, I didn't expect all of you to have the patience and have the studious attitude to keep on coming here, even if I do that every single day. It could be something boring and something annoying whenever I'm talking about like a boring formula. So I would like to say thank you for that. Yes, at first, in the early days of these TikTok lives, yes, I was not expecting that. Okay, but anyway, the point is, then how is advanced and just the existing inflection route number 1 and 2 will be different? How are they different? So, the reason why there's also inflection route number 1, 2, advanced is because in the advanced courses, we will talk about in detail a little bit more on how to use a lot of endings at the same time. 3 or even sometimes 4. And number 2, we will be adding a couple of more formulas. You have most of them already. So, yes, right now, the existing inflection route number 1 and 2 is built to have you prepared for about 99.9% of situations that you would run into. Okay, but in the advanced courses, we will be adding a couple of more, but those are formulas that you would need for situations that you might run into, for example, like once a year, or maybe not even that. Okay, so they did not make the list of priorities. But anyway, so once again, we will go through inflection route number 1 course, advanced, course for inflection route number 2, advanced, so that we can talk about using a couple of endings at the same time. We'll break it down a little bit more technically, and we'll add just a couple of more formulas. Okay, but I'll just show you a glimpse of formulas, a couple of formulas being added, because once again, we're in the color course, and we are actually in a situation where I would use one of the formulas that it's not a big difference that I would be adding in the advanced courses. Okay, which is, it's not a huge difference, but yes, we have the H situation, right? Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay. And in the H situation, you once again have to divide the situation into two, right? When you have verbs and when you have adjectives. Right now we have an adjective, white. Okay, so I'm sorry, wrote it in English. And we have the negative version of white. Now, usually, in this case, of course, outside of a couple of exceptions, you would apply a four-step formula, right? In inflection route number 1, because the 치다, get plus adjective ending, belongs to inflection route number 1. You apply a four-step formula. You remove 다, you remove H, and then change the vowel into an E or ye. And then step number 4, you can attach the ending. Okay, so usually all you have to know is to make it simple, a little bit simple. I usually say for now, just think of it as this. If the remove ta, remove h, if the vowel that came right before h is anything other than ya, then change it into e. But if it is ya, then change it into ye. Okay, however, there are very, 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 very rare cases where you see a word that ends with the H once ta is removed, an adjective, and where the vowel that comes right before the H is also yo. Okay, so to actually be more meticulous, it's actually if the vowel that came right before H is either ya or yo, then change it into ye. If it's anything other than ya or yo, then change it into e. Okay, but you would very, very rarely use these words that end with H and the vowel yo. But still, they do exist. An example would be the negative version of white. So, once again, remove ta, remove the H. Now you have a vowel that came right before the H consonant. Change it into e or ye. So how do you know that? Well, if that vowel is either ya or yo, usually you have ya, but very rarely you do have yo too. Ya or yo, change it into ye. If it's anything other than that, then change it into e. So right now, I do have one of the two, so therefore, I'm going to change yo into ye. And then... Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you, thank you. So 허예, and then the ending 지다. So now what do we have? We have get white. Get white. So once again, it means that something was not white, it turned white. Okay, so 허예지다. So in Korean, you say get white or become white. But once again, it's a display form, right? It's the display form of get white, so I cannot use it. Once again, I need another ending. What's the second ending that I want to use? The past tense ending, because I'm saying it got white. Okay, so this time we are still in inflection route number 1 because we are using the past tense ending, and the rules are if something ends with e once ta is removed, well, you remove ta, change e into yo, and then attach the ending, right? So we're not doing anything new. People who have studied inflection, we're not doing anything new, right? We're just doing inflecting the word twice in a row. So change e into yo and then attach the past tense ending. So now we have got white or became white. Exactly. 허예졌어요. 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 Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so all together, now we have, yes, it already a little became white, got white. 이미 조금 허예졌어요. So let's close our eyes and imagine that we are the person saying this. So I have to break bad news, right? This is not good news, this is bad news. Okay, so now if you want to be extra careful so that you don't sound like you're enjoying this situation. I'm not saying, oh, hey, look at this. Yeah, your eye turned white. Yeah, how fun is this? Now, of course, you're not going to say that, right? Of course not. So if you want to be extra careful that you are not looking at this as something positive and you're enjoying it, then you can use the negative version of white as a way of making it extra clear that you're saying, yes, I'm sorry to break the bad news. It is unfortunate, but yes, 이미 조금 허해졌어요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? Okay. So that was how to use a nuanced variation of white. Okay, 허옇다. Now, this time, let's use a version of black. Okay, so this time, let's say we're having a barbecue party with a friend, and, well, I think my friend, my 친구, burned the meat, the 고기. Meat. But he says, so I'm gonna say, oh, I don't think we can eat this. But my friend is going to say, oh, no, it's okay. Yeah. I didn't burn it a lot. It's okay to eat it. So my friend is going to say, 먹다, eat, but inflection route number 1, right? So we're going to use the okay to ending, right? So 먹어도 돼요. So of course the irregular middle section all, and then we're going to use the okay to ending, 도 돼요. My 친구 is going to say, oh no, don't worry, I don't think I burned it a lot. 먹어도 돼요. It's okay to eat it. Now I'm going to say, what? What are you talking about? Look at it. So let's say it looks like this. What do you mean you didn't burn it a lot? If this is not burning it a lot, then I don't know what is. Okay, so I'm gonna say I don't think it is okay to eat it. But my friend is gonna say, oh no, it's okay. 괜찮아요. 먹어도 돼요. Yeah, okay. So clearly we have a disagreement right now. Okay, so I'm gonna say, well, what are you talking about? Look at it. So I'm gonna say, well, this time, then which version do you think would be the best in this case? Breaking forms. Which one do you think would be the best out of the 5, out of the typical 5? I'm saying, yeah, what? A little? 조금? Yeah, number 4 works, but, yeah, keep on looking. 4 works. I'm not going to say 4 is wrong. I would use 3. Well, yes, I'm not saying 3 is the only answer. I'm not going to say 3 is the only answer. But, once again, I want to emphasize that it's pitch black. It's not just a little black, it's completely pitch black right now. And, of course, if I'm saying I don't want to eat that, then that's something negative, right? I'm saying, hey, what? You want me to eat this? So that's something negative. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to eat it. If it's something positive, I would have. Okay, so pitch black plus negative. I'm not saying 3 is the only version that works, but yes, it would be a very good version that works. That, yes, is all encompassing, the nuance that you need. Pitch black plus negative. Okay, so I'm going to say 시꺼멓다. And once again, yes, I can use a nuance ending, right? A nuance ending. I can say, Yeah. My friend is suggesting that. Yeah. It is kind of, yeah, black, but not completely black. Come on, it's not that bad. So my friend thinks that it's 까무잡잡하다, but I'm gonna say, what do you mean? Look at it. It's 시꺼멓다. Okay, so we're both saying black, but a different version of black. So I'm gonna say, use the nuance ending that imbues the nuance of, I am saying something that you already know as well, or at least you should know as well. So I'm saying, what are you talking about? You're looking at it. You should know that it's not okay. So I'm gonna say, 시꺼멓잖아요. So the 잖아요 ending, right? Exactly. So 시꺼멓잖아요. So 잖아요 would be a no route ending, right? So we're just going to remove 다 and then immediately attach it. So that's why you always have to know inflection. So 시꺼멓잖아요. Nothing works without inflection, right? Okay, so my friend is gonna say, I think my 친구 burned the 고기 too much like this, so I don't think it's edible anymore, but my friend says, 괜찮아요, 먹어도 돼요. I'm gonna say, well, what are you talking about? 시꺼멓잖아요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Okay. So I'm saying 안 괜찮아요. It's not okay. Okay, 안 괜찮아요. So 시꺼멓잖아요. Now this time, let's go back to red. Someone who can cook, yes, exactly. Okay, so let's go back to red this time. Okay, so now this time, let's say Mike. I have a friend, let's say, named Mike. Okay, Mike seems to like Susan, for example. Okay, so now, you know when you're super young, like let's say we're 13, you know, when you realize that someone likes someone, you know, you just tease them. So let's say Mike's friends are all going to get together and tease Mike a little bit. Hey, you like Susan. Mike likes Susan. And let's say Mike is not going to admit it. Mike is going to say, no, I don't. Okay, but he does, let's say. So we're going to say, well, do you know that you blush all the time when Susan is around? Okay, so, and even right now. So we're going to say, you're in Korean, we can say your face is red as a way of indicating that Mike is blushing. Well, maybe, but let's think about when your face turns red because you're blushing. So this is Mike. So he doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't look 13, but let's just say he's 13. Okay. So he doesn't want to admit it. Now, yes, his face can turn red, but is it going to turn into this kind of red, like super vivid? Not quite, right? It's not super vivid, right? That's a medical condition, I think. Exactly. That's an emergency. Thank you. Okay, so exactly. So then which version would be the best version then? It's not going to be very vivid, and take into consideration that we're teasing someone. We're teasing a friend. Take all of that into consideration. Which one would be the best? Exactly. Number 4. Not super vivid, because vivid means this kind of red. I don't think anyone's, I mean, of course, yes, it can, but out of blushing, that is. I don't think it turns this red. Okay, so not very vivid, plus playful. Yes, we're teasing. So we're gonna say, hey, do you know that your face is 벌겋다 right now. So I'm going to tell Mike, come on, just admit it. I'm going to say 그냥 인정하다. 인정하다. Admit. But of course, inflection route number 1, I'm going to inflect it into 인정해요, right? 그냥 인정해요. And then I'm going to say your face is red right now. Okay, so we have time. Yes, and we have, of course, no you, the face as the subject, no is, am, was, were, are, and we have red as the predicative adjective. Okay. But of course, we know exactly which version of red we're going to use. We're going to use the not very vivid plus playful version. Okay, so yes, I can say a version of face, 얼굴. And then right now, 지금, a version of right now. And then yes, once again, we're going to use the right version of red, 벌겋다. But of course, I don't want its display form. I want its actual form in present tense. So let's once again go to inflection route number 1. Okay, so once again, we are in inflection route number 1 because of the 요 ending, and we have a display form of an adjective, not a verb, that ends with H once ta is removed. Once again, in this case, out of a couple of exceptions, there are exceptions, right? But 벌겋다 is not one of the exceptions. So therefore, I'm going to once again apply the 4-step formula. If I had one of the exceptions, I would have applied a 3-step formula. So always study inflection. You can go to my TikTok bio to have access to the PDF files for inflection. Okay, so number 1, remove ta. Number 2, remove h. Number 3, change the vowel into an e or ye. And then number 4, now you can attach 드디어, finally, you can attach the ending. Okay, so once again, remove ta, remove h, and then, yes, if the vowel that came right before h, this vowel is one of ya or 여, then change it into ye. But if it's not, then change it into e. Right now, it is not, exactly. So I'm going to change it into e. So 벌게, and then 요. Now I can attach the ending. So 벌게요. So now a version of red, but a not very vivid plus playful version of red. Okay. So now I have the whole 문장. So 천천히 읽을게요. So I'm gonna say, just admit it. 그냥 인정해요. 얼굴 지금 벌게요. So one more time, with more speed. 그냥 인정해요. 얼굴 지금 벌게요. With extra speed. 그냥 인정해요. 얼굴 지금 벌게요. Okay, so now that's why you always have to understand, you always have to grasp context. Close your eyes, imagine that you are the speaker in the situation, and always take into consideration, what would you have done if you were the speaker as a sentient being that has emotions? Because that's where nuance comes from. And in a real-life conversation between real people, yes, nuance is everything. So let's look back on what we did today. When first I was being a doctor, and telling this patient, oh, I'm sorry to tell you this. This is unfortunate, but yes, your eyes are turning white. In Korean, that is. Okay, so I made it extra clear that I am not enjoying this. I know that this is something negative. Okay, so I used the negative version of white. And when I said, my friend burned the meat, and he's saying, just eat it. It's okay. And I'm saying, it's not okay. 안 괜찮아요. It's pitch black. Okay, so you didn't just burn it a little, you completely burned it. Okay, so in that case, I used the pitch black plus negative version of black, and this time, because I'm teasing someone, yes, I used, and plus we're talking about blushing, that's why I used the not very vivid plus playful version of red. So always, in real life situations, nuance is everything. Okay. So, today, 오늘, thank you for the support. So we looked into, yes, these nuance variations. Of course, if you have the PDF file, you'd know that, yeah, later on, we will look into more examples. So don't worry about that. We'll practice even more, so don't worry about that. Now, tomorrow, what we're going to do is, 내일, yes, so, if you go to the PDF file, yes, now we covered up until page number 8. Now tomorrow, 9, so we're going to go to indications. What does that mean? Now, until now, we looked into situations where we were using a color as its own word. Whether it's a noun, whether it's an adjective, still its own word. But sometimes you see indications, just a syllable that can't be used alone. So I just showed you a couple of examples of indications. These are not the only ones. There are more, but the typical ones. Okay, so for example, now let's talk about jeans. So usually, I mean, of course, not all of them, but usually, yeah, blue jeans. So jeans are usually blue, right? So a long time ago, when Koreans first saw blue jeans, they just called it blue pants. So 청바지, that's why it's still called 바지, pants, and 청 together. So once again, 청 is an indication that something that tells you that whatever noun that it is being attached to has those properties of being blue. Okay, however, it cannot be used by itself as the word blue. It can only become a part of a noun to indicate that that noun has the properties of being blue. So that's why up until today, it's called 청바지. Okay, so of course, yes, let's say black sea, 흑해. 해 is a way of saying sea, and 흑 is a way of saying black. Okay, so let's say I have never seen this word before. For example, let's say, yes, never seen this word before. But still, I can deduce that, oh, it means black sea. I guess you're talking about a sea that is black because I see this indication. Okay, so that's what I mean by indications. Okay, does that make sense? So we're going to, look into indications starting tomorrow. Yes, oh, thank you. Yeah, there's a little bit of a typo. I'm sorry about that. Blue pants, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so indications, and then we're going to look into some variables, and then, yes, starting page number 11, once again, we're going to look into a lot of more examples so that we can get used to everything that we've learned throughout this course.